bora kwa taifa.
Nine o'clock on the nose, and you bang on time for TV47 Prime. My name is Debarl, Inea, trusting that you had a lovely, good day. And of course, I want to extend a hearty welcome again to our sign language. On the desk today is Rodani. To our top story right now, where President William Ruto has directed security agencies to intensify the crackdown on goons and other criminal elements, warning that Kenya will not tolerate violence, lawlessness, or the destruction of property. As Josh Onsare now reports, the president says Kenyans have backed efforts to restore public order and curb criminality.
Amid growing concerns over attacks by armed gangs, including violence witnessed during the Olkalau parliamentary by-election, President William Ruto has insisted that the country must take a firm stand against criminality.
We really need to have a candid conversation about criminality, the rule of law, security of our nation. It cannot be the case. There cannot be any defense for criminality. There cannot be any defense for breaking the law.
The president has directed security agencies to enforce the law professionally while maintaining public order and protecting the rights of citizens.
Our security agencies must do their job. Within the law, they must do their job and they must stop criminality.
President Ruto said while Kenyans have a constitutional right to hold peaceful demonstrations, criminal acts committed under the cover of protests cannot be accepted. He said those responsible for violence, destruction of property, and other criminal activities must face full force of the law.
Every sector of our society, the business leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, have all agreed that having lawlessness, goons and all these other characters, criminals, should be stopped.
Ruto called for a national conversation on criminality, the rule of law and national security. He said many Kenyans have expressed support for efforts to end the destruction of property and restore order, calling for a collective commitment to reject violence and criminal behavior.
I am very happy that the last time there was an attempt for criminality in town and we stopped it, many Kenyans agreed that no, it's now time for us to say no to people who want to ban our property. And that is going to be the future.
Meanwhile, DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua has accused President Ruto's administration of failing to deal with what he describes as the menace of goonism. In a social media post, Gachagua alleged that rogue police officers are working with goons to terrorize Kenyans. He further claimed that the groups are operating under the direction of the Interior Cabinet Secretary and the Principal Secretary. Gachagua also alleged that the same group captured on camera attacking voters during the Olkalau by-election was responsible for the attack on Witima ACK Church in Nyeri County in January this year. The Interior Ministry has since commenced investigations into various attacks reported during public rallies across the country, including those witnessed during the Olkalau by-election. Josh Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Is Kenya finally returning to free education? That is their back for President William Ruto's announcement that every student admitted to a public university or college will receive full government funding and the proposed amendments before Parliament. The move marks a major shift from the controversial differentiated funding model introduced 3 years ago. But does full funding guarantee free education? How will the new system work? Andrin Kilemi explains.
Every year,
Thousands of students celebrate securing a place in the university. For many families, however, that excitement is quickly replaced by one question: how will we pay? It is a challenge successive governments have tried to solve, and now President William Ruto says his administration has found the answer.
It will not matter the background of any child in Kenya. It will matter how good they are only.
Speaking from State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto said the proposed amendments, which are before Parliament, seek to guarantee government funding for every qualified student.
Any student, so long as they have passed their exam and they have been placed in a college or a university, each one of them will get full funding for their higher education. It will be the choice of parents if they want to pay. But if parents don't want to pay, we now have a model that will pay for every child.
The announcement represents a significant shift from the student-centered funding model introduced in 2023. The model classified students into 5 funding bands based on their household income.
We tried the differentiated model. I think the vice chancellors here know it didn't work because it made most of our universities almost close down. Because while we promised 80% funding, we went down to 40%, and most universities suffered. We have worked on what we thought was equity, where we said parents will contribute a small portion, we will give a portion of loan, we will give a portion of scholarship. That creates equity, but it's not good enough. Now we are moving to universal under the amendments we have taken to Parliament.
While the announcement has been welcomed by many as a step towards wider access to higher education, the proposal also raises important questions. How much will it cost taxpayers? Will the funding cover tuition alone or include accommodation and upkeep? What becomes of HELB loans? And can the government sustain the program at a time when public universities continue to face financial pressure? Andrina Kilemi, TV47.
And hopes of accessing treatment in public hospitals are fading quickly for thousands of patients following the start of a nationwide healthcare workers' strike. Union officials say the national and county governments have failed to address key grievances, leaving essential services disrupted across the country. This report was prepared by Athman Said.
At the Iten Referral Hospital in Elgeyo Marakwet County, desperate patients seeking medical attention are being turned away, forcing many to seek costly alternatives in private facilities.
Tangu asubuhi nimekuwa na mgonjwa alikuwa anahudumiwa hapa hospitali ya Iten. Lakini nimefika kidogo, services ilikuwa chini due to the national strike for all doctors. Clinical doctors.
The industrial action, which took effect on Monday, follows a breakdown in talks between health unions, the Council of Governors, and the national government over unfulfilled collective bargaining agreements. Key among the union's demands is the permanent and pensionable employment of thousands of universal health coverage staff following expiration of a 21-day strike notice issued in June.
If the government has money, what is it that is so hard to be able to issue permanent and pensionable letters to the UHC colleagues? And they've been here, they've been actually walking around. And therefore we'll be pitching camp, we'll even be doing night vigil at Afya House.
However, the situation remains markedly different at the Laikipia County Referral Hospital, where operations have continued uninterrupted. Patients here are still receiving routine care and departing without disruption. For now, the plight of patients in many counties hinges on whether county leadership and the national government will bow to union pressure and initiate dialogue or leave the public healthcare sector in total collapse.
President William Ruto is shifting the political conversation ahead of the 2027 general election from who will win power to who has the vision and capacity to transform Kenya. Ruto is challenging his political rivals and other leaders he accuses of lacking the will to drive change, urging them to make way for those ready to take the country to the next level.
I, of course, many of the ideas.
President William Ruto is making his economic transformation agenda a central political argument, insisting that Kenya must not be governed by fear, pessimism, or the politics of past failures. Speaking at State House while receiving a scholarly transformation report dubbed Towards a First World Nation, Strategic Guidelines for Long-Term National Transformation, President Ruto appeared to take aim at leaders who constantly tell Kenyans that government initiatives cannot work because similar efforts have failed before.
Following extensive consultations with many stakeholders, particularly with the former Prime Minister, and as part of our broader national reflection, I invited Professor Hiroyuki Hino, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and their distinguished colleagues to undertake an exercise in scholarship and strategic thinking on Kenya's future beyond Vision 2030.
Network of strong and efficient public institutions with a life that transcends the tenure of political parties in power is of absolute necessity.
The president says he was impressed by the many matters raised in the report, including strategic directions the country has already begun pursuing, such as the establishment of the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Its value lies not in providing every answer, not even in the composition of the team, but in asking important questions, challenging our assumptions, broadening our thinking, and enriching our reflection on the choices that will shape Kenya's future.
The president has called for a shift in the nature of politics from constant criticism of government policies to constructive engagement on solving the country's challenges. He says Kenya requires focused and collective leadership with a clear vision to place the country among first world economies in the shortest time possible.
The next election will come and go, but we must focus, because whoever wins or loses the next election will be here. Nobody's going to leave the country. So we're going to be here, and the future of Kenya will matter to everybody, those who win and those who lose.
The vision comes against a backdrop of growing public frustration, particularly among young Kenyans.
We must then convert that impatience into a catalyst. It must become the driving force.
The leaders assured the country of the government's commitment to safeguarding the economic gains and advancing the transformation agenda. For TV47, I'm Linda Alela.
Now, President William Ruto has today made a major shift within the government's communication and oversight ranks by making changes in government. Charles Owino has been appointed as the new government spokesperson, transitioning from his previous role at the Ministry of Information. This, as Isaac Mwaura has been promoted to lead the newly designated Office of Diversity, Inclusion and Disability Rights within the Executive Office of the President. All right, I'll just siphoning there motioning my, that is, of course, my auto cue has just stuck there, so we continue. And the president also has moved the Constitutional Commission's nominating Dr. Duncan Ojwang Oburu to serve as the new chairperson of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, pending parliamentary approval. Further nominations include Wilson Susion and Antonina Lento-Njon as members of the Teachers Service Commission, alongside Flora Mutua, who has been tapped for the Public Service Commission. 7 new members have also been named to the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, including Wilson Kuria Duita and Mary Nenjala Kilobi, to strengthen the bridge between the national and county governments. All nominees for constitutional positions will now head to the National Assembly for the vetting before formalizing their new roles. Now, a group of Kenyans recently repatriated from South Africa have petitioned the State Department for Diaspora Affairs seeking urgent support to rebuild their lives after returning home with little or nothing. The returnees are appealing for startup capital identity documents and help to bring back relatives still stranded abroad. Michelle Mwangi has more.
For many of these families, fleeing xenophobic attacks in South Africa marked the end of one difficult journey and the beginning of another back home. After holding a peaceful march to the State Department for Diaspora Affairs offices, the repatriated Kenyans sought an audience with Principal Secretary Roslyn Njogu to present the challenges they continue to face after fleeing South Africa.
Maybe the IOM and other parties involved to assist us with startup funds, as we've seen in other countries, to help us go about our daily issues. And then our third issue mainly being about the lift of the ban, because some of us are in school.
Tunaomba serikali kama itaweza saidia, kwa sababu there is no way utaleta mtoto hapa out of nowhere useme eti anataka kuendelea na masomo. You need that letter yenye ita indicate vile utafanya.
Sasa tuko na stress sana, sababu saa ile tulifika kwa immigration ya South Africa, sisi wote hata kama ulikuwa na barua tulipewa ban ya kurudi South Africa for 5 years.
Among the key issues they wanted addressed were access to startup capital to help them rebuild their lives, faster processing of national identity cards and birth certificates for their children, as well as the lifting of travel restrictions to allow them visit family members left behind.
Kama mimi naishi na wazazi wangu, because I don't know where to start. Nyumba ni ndogo. We went there in South Africa tupate pesa hata tusaidie familia huku, but sahii tumekuja tu kwa nyumba tu, hatuna kitu yote, tunaomba jobs.
A few moments later, Principal Secretary Roslyn Njogu gave them an audience and they emerged wearing what appeared to be smiles of relief after receiving assurances on the processing of IDs, birth certificates and access to psychological support.
As we speak right now, because we have immediate feedback on our IDs, for those who did not have IDs, and immediate feedback on all children who did not have birth certificates.
While the repatriated Kenyans appreciate the government's efforts to bring them back home, they are now calling on the government to provide startup capital funds and any other form of support to help them start their lives here at home. Michelle Mwangi, TV47, Diaspora Offices, Nairobi.
Now, more details have emerged in the murder trial of Albert Ojwang, with the High Court in Kibera being shown CCTV footage recovered from Central Police Station. An IPOA forensic analyst took the court through the final hours before Ojwang's death, highlighting the movements of police officers, key timestamps and events captured inside and around the station on the night of June 7th and early hours of June the 8th, 2025. Sheila Chelengat has more.
In a detailed presentation before the Kibera High Court, an independent policing oversight authority forensic expert reconstructed the events of the night Albert Ojwang was booked at Central Police Station.
Yes.
The court was shown CCTV footage allegedly recovered from parts of surveillance recording that investigators say were deleted on the morning of June 8, 2025 at about 7:30 a.m. Among those named in court were Police Constable James Muhwana, Inspector Samuel Nganga, Chief Inspector Samson Talam, Police Constable Peter Kimani, Police Constable Evelyn Kanyiri, Police Constable John Ngige, Senior Sergeant Stephen Sigei, Brian Mwaniki, a man identified by a goatee beard, another wearing a Masai shuka, and a third individual in a grey hoodie. Prosecutors contend that some of those captured on camera were present during the critical moments leading to Ojwang's death. According to the footage played in court, Albert Ojwang arrived at Central Police Station at 9:23 p.m. in a black SUV, accompanied by 6 men. He was escorted to the reporting office where he remained for some time. Investigators pointed to 10:41 p.m. as one of the key moments captured on the footage. At that time, Police Constable James Mukwana and a man identified by investigators as having a goatee beard are seen emerging from the cell later designated as the crime scene after spending close to 15 minutes inside. Footage presented in court appeared to show the 2 men attempting to conceal their faces as they left the cell area. 5 minutes later, at 10:46 p.m., CCTV footage allegedly captures Ojwang being escorted into the same cell. According to investigators, this was the last moment he was seen conscious. From that point, the footage largely shows officers moving in and out of the cell. One of the details highlighted in court was footage of a man identified by his Masai shuka leaving the cell with what investigators described as reddish stains on his hands, suspected to be blood. After midnight on June 8th, investigators say activity around the cell intensified. At 12:43 a.m., 4 officers are seen approaching the cell wearing white gloves. 2 minutes later, Chief Inspector Samson Talam and Inspector Samuel Nganga are captured walking towards the cell before briefly leaving and returning. Minutes later, Chief Inspector Talam is seen exiting the cell carrying what appeared to be a box of gloves and a mobile phone. Behind him, 4 officers emerge carrying what investigators allege was Albert Ojwang's body. The footage then shows the officers carrying the body out of the station and loading it into a waiting police vehicle. Investigators told the court that Ojwang was placed in the rear section of the vehicle while no officer occupied the back compartment during the journey. At the front of the vehicle, CCTV footage allegedly captures Inspector Samuel Nganga, another officer and the driver taking their positions. According to the testimony presented before the court, the vehicle then left Central Police Station for Mbagathi Hospital. The hearing continues on Wednesday, with investigators expected to present and analyze CCTV footage obtained from the hospital as prosecutors seek to establish the events following Ojwang's removal from the station. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, has begun legal action to recover 7.6 acres of public land in Kisumu valued at 4.3 billion shillings, allegedly acquired from the Kenya Prisons Service and turned into a private residential estate. The commission says the land was irregularly subdivided into private plots through fraudulent allocations and altered records.
There are people, there are Kenyans who have documents of ownership which they claim to own this particular property. Also behind us is that piece of land which is developed that has about 92 parcels of land, most of it developed, but some undeveloped.
As prison service will guard the land that has been bestowed upon us for future use by the government to ensure that the same land is not taken away from ourselves. Where we are standing here, according to the plans that were there and put in place, this parcel of land was meant for construction of regional prisons headquarters.
We have had cases in Kisumu of misappropriation of land. It is something that the county government has worked very closely with the EACC to try and get back those pieces of land, restore them, and ensure that planning is respected and that the lands are utilized and applied to the purpose for which those lands were planned.
Investigations into the Chaiwali restaurant armed robbery are intensifying after detectives arrested 3 suspects, recovered firearms and gathered new leads in the hunt for the criminal network behind the attack. This report was prepared by Moluse Meshak.
Investigations into the armed robbery at Chaiwali restaurant in Nairobi's Westlands area have gained momentum following the arrest of 3 suspects during an intelligence-led operations in Githurai, Kiambu County. Detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations tracked the suspects to their hideout, where they allegedly attempted to escape after detecting the presence of police officers. A female suspect, however, managed to elude arrest and remains the subject of an active police manhunt. Police say they recovered 2 pistols loaded with 9mm ammunition, which are believed to have been used in a series of violent robberies in Nairobi and its outskirts. Preliminary investigations have linked the suspects to the July 4th robbery at Chaiwali restaurant, where armed assailants stole from customers before fleeing on motorcycles. The suspects have been identified as 22-year-old Rwandan national Edison Mokama, alias S. Musa Abdul, 25-year-old Edens Kikanga, and John Junguna Githinji. A female accomplice who escaped during the operation remains at large. The investigation has also taken a new turn after detectives established that a firearm recovered from a suspect who was fatally shot in Joska last week had been officially issued to a Court of Appeal Judge Agre Otsula. Authorities are now seeking to establish how the licensed firearm ended up in the hands of criminals. The recovered firearms have since been submitted for forensic analysis as detectives continue to pursue more suspects and collect evidence aimed at dismantling the wider criminal network.
The Elections Observation Group, ELOG, has described the Ol-Kalou parliamentary by-election as largely peaceful and well-managed, but has raised concerns over biometric verification failures and isolated security incidents. The Observer Group is now calling for reforms to boost public confidence ahead of the 2027 general election.
The July 16 Ol-Kalou parliamentary by-election has received a generally positive assessment from election observers, despite a number of operational and security challenges. According to the Election Observation Group ELOG, most polling stations opened on time, election materials were available, and party agents were present throughout the voting process. However, technology emerged as one of the major concerns. ELOG says KEMS kits failed in nearly 1 in every 5 polling stations observed, while some voters were unable to be identified through fingerprints and had to undergo alternative verification procedures. In 41.2% of the polling stations observed, voters were turned away either because they had reported to the wrong polling station or lacked the required identification documents. ELOG also documented isolated cases of violence, allegations of voter bribery, and the deployment of anti-riot police to restore calm in some areas. Following the declaration of results, observers recorded cases of property destruction targeting persons perceived to support rival candidates. Despite these challenges, ELOG says the by-election reflected strong election day management.
We are looking forward to 2027 to be a more, even better than what we have given in Ol-Kalou today.
Meanwhile, senators allied to the Democracy for the Citizens Party were today seen donning green coats, symbolizing the party's colors as they continued to celebrate their victory in the Ol-Kalou by-election.
The house is mostly more beautiful than what you see this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, if you see things that looks like grasshoppers in the house, Mr. Speaker, they should forgive us. We normally look better than this.
As attention now shifts to preparations for the 2027 general election, Elog says addressing the weaknesses identified during the Ol Kalou by-election will be critical in strengthening the electoral credibility and public trust.
Now, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna are emerging as key contenders to lead the opposition's presidential campaign ahead of the next general election. Sources within the opposition say the two have gained support due to their popularity and national appeal, even as uncertainty clouds Dr. Fred Matiang'i, his bid within Jubilee. Apollo Kamau has more.
Though the opposition is yet to publicly agree on a presidential flag bearer and running mate to face President William Ruto in next year's general election, behind the scenes, efforts to settle on a joint ticket appear to be gaining momentum amid internal jitters.
Wewe kasongo! Wewe kaongo!
Advisors, strategists and allies of key opposition figures say discussions have reached an advanced stage, with multiple sources within the coalition indicating that Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka is emerging as a preferred presidential candidate, with Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna tipped as his running mate.
Now, the biggest attributes will be your popularity in the country across communities, so that there is no enclaves. That will be, because we need also to be alert to the fact that when you carry a survey, some communities are more cohesive than the others, and therefore they could give you an unfair advantage.
By next year, come March, April, the picture is going to become clear. But the art, the drawing is already very clear. You can see the shadow of how these things are forming. And I can see that we are in the 2002 moment. And the victory of the opposition is not going to be largely, it's not going to be in doubt.
A draft progress report based on a scientific opinion poll commissioned by the opposition indicates that a Kalonzo Sifuna ticket could enjoy broader national appeal and potentially inherit part of former ODM leader Raila Odinga's traditional support base.
Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013 was elected by a coalition of Gikuyus and the Kalenjins. William Ruto in 2022 was elected by a coalition of Kalenjins and the Gikuyus. So there is nothing that stops the opposition from making a coalition of the whole country. And the plan is to make a coalition of the whole country.
Internal realignments within opposition-affiliated parties, including Jubilee, Wiper and ODM, have further fueled speculation around a possible Kalonzo Sifuna ticket. A section of different party officials and members of parliament has since associated themselves with Sifuna's Linda Mwananchi movement, among them Jubilee's Pauline Njoroge, who resigned as the party's deputy organizing secretary. Several Gusii members of parliament have also been seen accompanying Sifuna at public events, further signaling growing support for the proposed alliance. Meanwhile, Jubilee Deputy Party Leader Fred Matiang'i's presidential bid appears to have lost momentum. If a draft proposal obtained by TV47 is anything to go by, Matiang'i could instead be positioned for the yet-to-be-created role of Prime Minister, while former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua would take charge of key government ministries should the United Alternative Government and Linda Mwananchi Alliance win next year's election. Apollo Kamau, TV47.
All right, that story by Apollo Kamau leads us now to a station break. We'll circle back. Don't go away.
Share our cultures and the one thing that unites us all,
that celebrates precious moments, nurtures our Kenyan spirit, welcomes, and even inspires. Our language does all of this and more. The more the milk, the better the chai. Chai kweli ina Brookside Dairy Best.
Umechoka kutumia links za kukwama? Cheki, free rewards ni hatari.
Bro, ulikuwa unatumia wrong link na wrong info. Unahitaji info sahihi na link sahihi.
Ni time ya info sahihi. IEBC Continuous Voter Registration iko live. Mistari ndefu Z, hakuna cha wrong links.
Main character energy unlocked. Right information, right direction. My vote is my ultimate choice.
Jisajili leo katika ofisi ya eneo bunge, kituo cha huduma au Customer Experience Center iliyopo Anniversary Towers, Nairobi. Kuwa change, kura yako ndio future yetu sote.
Mimi nasema ugali ya Lea haikuwangi complicated. Ukienda kwa duka tu, ukienda kwa super tu, kwa afya bora ya jamii ungapoa ni Lea tu.
Guys, hamwezeni wait?
Bei ya Lea Premium, si complicated. Kupika Lea Premium, si complicated. Unabai, unapika, unashiba. Lea Premium.
Lea Premium Flour, nurturing the world. Available in a store near you.
Welcome back. Now, the Kenya Wildlife Service says a new animal orphanage is needed to ease congestion at the current facility and create separate spaces for predators and prey. However, the project has faced a legal challenge after Friends of Nairobi National Park filed a petition seeking to stop construction. Faith Wangari has more.
The Kenya Wildlife Service project has run into legal trouble after Friends of Nairobi National Park filed a petition citing alleged violations of environmental, wildlife and constitutional laws. Following the petition, the court conducted a site visit to confirm whether construction was ongoing and to verify claims that the area had been cleared, with petitioners present alongside KWS officials. KWS has already fenced off an area for the orphanage construction. Central to the dispute is a claim that part of the land was being handed over to Bomas of Kenya for its own expansion project. However, KWS maintains the relocation is necessary as the current facility, which has been operational since 1964, is congested and the predators and the prey currently share close quarters. Court documents reveal inconsistencies in the project's own paperwork. One petitioner's affidavit says the environmental impact assessment report describes the site size differently across sections and project costs are also disputed. KWS says part of its plan include a parking lot facility for an estimated 1,300 visitors to Bomas of Kenya alongside a proposed flyover connecting Galleria to Bomas from the KWS side of the park. Officials say the concept dates back to 2013 with the goal of tapping into Bomas' existing visitor traffic. Faith Wangari, TV47.
The Kenya Forest Service has officially opened a new green zone aimed at boosting environmental conservation and restoring natural vegetation. The shilling 75 million project was launched in a ceremony attended by Chief Conservator of Forest Alex Lemarkoko and Bishop Abraham Mulwa. The launch comes as the government intensifies efforts to curb tree loss and increase forest cover. Stakeholders say the project will also create employment opportunities for the surrounding community.
We open it in the name of God.
As a matter of fact, this agenda for tree growing and 15 billion has enhanced employment. We employ personnel in our tree nurseries. We have also employed a number of our foresters to help us in extension duties. And you can also imagine that a lot of other communities and women groups are able to raise their tree seedlings in their tree nurseries, which we also procure from them so that they take something home.
We thank God now you have multiplied from a small number to now thousands, almost going to 6,000 people. And that's a big number of people. So be blessed. And all blessings comes as a result of obedience. And obey those who rule over you, but for they don't do it without God.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi is defending tax exemptions granted to Mombasa Sugar Refinery, insisting the decision followed the law, interagency consultations and regional trade agreements. His defense comes as Parliament intensifies scrutiny into controversial sugar importation. Suzanne Locho has more.
In addition, tax.
The National Treasury is pushing back against claim of irregularities surrounding the importation of raw sugar by Mombasa Sugar Refinery.
The issue of the regulations. How do you just put everything, let's start in the market? What is this hurry about? Kibos was not going anywhere. This importation of raw sugar was not going anywhere. Why didn't we get good procedures so that we can protect our people?
Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi says the approval process follows months of consultations involving the Treasury, the Ministries of Agriculture and Trade, the Kenya Revenue Authority and other regulatory agencies.
Sugar Board and the Kenya Revenue Authority. They are supposed to ensure that this sugar is only for industrial use. And we are very clear. You look at the minutes, it's very clear. If they didn't have the capacity, they would have told me in the meeting that they have no capacity. But they assured the committee that they have the capacity.
He says the aim was to boost local industrial sugar refining, promote value addition, and support job creation.
My policy is to promote investment. Is to promote investment. If the PS made a mistake of quoting regulations that don't speak to raw sugar, it is not my mistake. It is the PS to be asked, why did you quote a policy or regulation that doesn't exist?
According to the Treasury, the process began with an assessment of whether increased access to raw sugar would help utilize the country's installed refining capacity, strengthen domestic manufacturing, increase the supply of industrial sugar to local producers, and reduce dependence on imported finished industrial sugar.
The name changed from Kibos to Mombasa. It was even from this committee. So why should I be asked when I state that in 2025, the factory had changed the name to Mombasa, unless someone is on a fishing expedition?
The Treasury says Mombasa Sugar Refinery was authorized under an East African Community Framework to import 165,000 metric tons of raw sugar at a 10% duty for industrial refining. Mbadi says these were the only waivers approved by the Treasury, granted on public interest grounds. The Cabinet Secretary told lawmakers that the exemption came with strict conditions, saying that the imported raw sugar was to be refined exclusively for industrial use, with oversight by the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Kenya Sugar Board, and multi-agency team tasked with monitoring the release, utilization, and movement of the consignment.
In this case, what did you do to ensure that that is the case, so that the Kenyan public, because we talk about 2.9 billion in terms of taxes, so the Kenyan public does not lose 2.9 billion.
However, Parliament's probe is far from over. Lawmakers continue to examine the wider tax implications of the consignment, including claims that the transaction resulted in billions of shillings in foregone revenue. Susan Locho for TV47, Nairobi.
And the Ministry of Health is raising concerns over the rising use of bottle feeding, warning of potential health risks among children. This comes as Kenya's breastfeeding rate stands at 60%, with differences emerging between rural and urban areas. Elizabeth Atuna has more.
Over the past 2 decades, Kenya has made remarkable strides in exclusive breastfeeding, with the rate currently standing at 60%, above the World Health Organization target of 48%.
Only 60% were exclusive breastfed. So ask yourself, where is this 40%? What happened to them? Why did the mothers practice mixed feeding? Is it because they were not knowledgeable? Is it because they went to work, as the leader had said, and there was no workplace support?
However, these gains are facing a major setback following a rise in bottle feeding among children aged between 0 and 23 months, which increased from 26% in 2014 to 34% in 2022. Health stakeholders are now urging the public to avoid bottle feeding due to the associated risks.
The baby tend to be overfed because the mother is not measuring. The mother thinks that, why should I waste this formula? I've prepared 1 liter.
Now, stakeholders in Homa Bay County are intensifying reports to address teenage pregnancies and Rusinga Island, where nearly 1 in 4 girls has experienced a pregnancy or abortion. New interventions are now focusing on mentorship, counseling, leadership training, and life skills education to help girls make informed choices about their future. Brian Odambo reports.
The calm waters surrounding Rusinga Island reflect the daily fishing activities here. Fishermen prepare their nets and boats early in the morning before heading into Lake Victoria in search of a livelihood. Beyond the island's thriving fishing economy lies a growing social challenge. According to the Homa Bay County Department of Gender and Social Services, 23% of girls in Rusinga Island have experienced a pregnancy or abortion, raising concern and highlighting the need for urgent intervention. The constant movement of fishermen from one beach to another makes it difficult to track those accused of luring and exploiting young girls.
Almost every beach has a school attached to it. It is not easy because the people who come to fish in those beaches are not the natives of the county. We don't know what brought them to the county or why they have run away from their counties to come to Homa Bay. So this is also a challenge to us as a county.
To address the problem, stakeholders have launched a mentorship and counseling program targeting adolescent girls. The initiative equips them with life skills, builds self-confidence, and helps them resist peer pressure and make informed choices.
When we meet these girls, they are stuck. They have lost hope. They have problems with their parents, problem with schools, with their peers. And coaching is a way to help people think about and envision a better future for themselves. And you know, we all arrive and we have in front of a mountain. Sometimes a goal looks like a mountain. So we help them break it down into small, achievable steps.
For the beneficiaries such as Hilda Odhiambo, the program has renewed hope. She says, many girls become pregnant due to peer pressure, lack of accurate information, and inadequate guidance from parents and the community.
Some of the challenges that make many girls not to reach their dreams, one of them being peer pressure. They see their friends, like, for instance, if my friend tells me that there is no money in the Lake region, let me go get married to someone, then I'll get money and provide for my parents. I'll also think of the same idea and do it. And some of the things also is being ignorant.
I'm calling upon the government of Gladys Wanga to come and join us with the Dream, Believe, Repeat organization so that we can work this together.
Brian Odhiambo, TV47, Homa Bay.
Now we come back to the story. The Ministry of Health is raising concerns over the rising use of bottle feeding, warning of potential health risk among children. This comes as Kenya's breastfeeding rates stands at 60%, with differences emerging between rural and urban areas. Elizabeth Atino has more.
Over the past 2 decades, Kenya has made remarkable strides in exclusive breastfeeding, with the rate currently standing at 60%, above the World Health Organization target of 48%.
Only 60% were exclusive breastfed. So ask yourself, where is this 40%? What happened to them? Why did the mothers practice mixed feeding? Is it because they were not knowledgeable? Is it because they went to work, as Leader had said, and there was no workplace support?
However, these gains are facing a major setback following a rise in bottle feeding among children aged between 0 and 23 months, which increased from 26% in 2014 to 34% in 2022. Health stakeholders are now urging the public to avoid bottle feeding due to the associated risks.
The baby tend to be overfed because the mother is not measuring. The mother thinks that, why should I waste this formula? I've prepared 1 liter for the whole day. Why should I waste the 1 liter? And then do even those mothers have proper storage?
Some of the risks associated with bottle feeding include an increased risk of infections, a higher risk of malnutrition, and a greater possibility of developing allergies among children.
Then if you don't breastfeed, you give them the bottle feeding, then this particular baby is not burdening the mother. And this is a very key intervention for the baby's growth.
The rate of early initiation of breastfeeding, which refers to breastfeeding within the first hour after birth, has slightly declined from 62% in 2014 to 60% in 2022. Ironically, women in rural areas are performing better in early initiation at 63% compared to 55% in urban areas. It is also important to note that there is a 63% delay in breastfeeding initiation among mothers who deliver through cesarean section.
400,000 babies were not put on breastfeeding within the first 1 hour.
That mother who delivered today, the milk will be different after 1 week. After 2 weeks, it's going to be different. And that difference is important because that milk is suitable for that baby who is for that age.
Breastfeeding supports healthy growth, cognitive development, and school readiness in children. The country has seen significant progress, with stunting rates dropping from 40% in 1993 to 18% in 2022, while the rate of underweight children under 5 years has declined from 19% in 1993 to 10% in 2022. Additionally, lack of breastfeeding has a ripple effect on the economy. Kenya is projected to lose $38.3 billion from undernutrition between 2010 and 2030. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, Basigo and Ruby's Energy Kenya have partnered to expand electric vehicle charging infrastructure across the country, with the first public fast charging station now operational at Ruby's Sabaki in Athi River. Additional charging sites in Meru, Nyanyuki and Nyeri are expected to open later this month. The stations will serve electric buses, trucks, vans and passenger vehicles, as the two companies seek to boost access to charging facilities and support the growth of electric mobility in Kenya.
The way that the partnership with Rubis addresses the challenge of infrastructure, as we're seeing this rapidly expanding EV industry right now, is it allows us to put charging directly where PSV operators need it. Especially with the recent increases in price of fuel here in the Kenyan market, PSV operators are desperate to adopt more electric vehicles into their fleet.
So solar is something that is going to be used. There is a lot of water in Africa, so hydro is something which is green and also developing. So we can see that more and more in the economies, people have a need, especially the new generation, to get access to a cleaner energy and a proper and more affordable energy. So yes, new energy will be, I believe, the next steps for Africa, beside the fossil fuel basis remaining quite strong.
Now, the Cooperative Bank of Kenya has been named Kenya's best retail bank and best digital bank at the 2026 Euromani Awards for Excellence. The awards were presented in London, recognizing the lenders' performance in retail banking and digital financial services. The bank says more than 90% of its transactions are now processed through digital and alternative channels, as it continues to expand its digital banking services. All right, that's your business. Let's see what's happening in sports. Football Kenya Federation Premier League champions Gor Mahia have announced a major leadership overhaul ahead of the 2026-2027 season, naming central defender Sylvester Owino as the club's new captain. The club has also assembled a new leadership council with Mike Kibwage and Alpha Onyango appointed as first and second vice captains, respectively. Should the three be unavailable, Lawrence Juma and Ebenezer Asifua have been tasked with stepping up to lead the side. The strategic move comes as Kogalo intensify preparations for a demanding campaign that will include the Sekafa Kagame Cup, the CAF Championship League, and the defense of the domestic title. Eight teams have booked their places in the Safaricom Chapa Dimba Kakamega County finals after emerging victorious in inter-sub-county qualifiers held across the county. The fifth edition of Kenya's flagship grassroots football tournament continues to unearth promising young talents as teams battle for county honours. The boys category, Holy Cross Injira Senior School qualified from Mukumu after defeating Kwarula Youngsters Academy 4-0 and Shivagala Academy 2-0. Green Buffaloes advanced from Butere with victories over Malwart Youth 4-0 and Brave Warriors Youth 1-0, while Mumia's Vipers sealed their place after beating Gairwe Elite FC 1-0 and Navaholo Senior School 2-0. The girls' qualifiers also produced impressive performances, with Lugari Progressive Academy progressing from Lugari after defeating Golden Queens 2-1 and Luanda Starlets 1-0. Red Commandos qualified from Butere following 3-0 and 4-0 victories over Muluanda Queens and Indomitable Girls, respectively.
Tonea Chapadimba, in fact, ilipokuja tuseme kama this year tumefurahishwa sana. This year imekuja na tofauti kubwa sana juu first edition to fourth edition upande wa checking walikuwa wanatumia, unakuja tu mtu anakuja tu kuvet anaangalia tu player, mwili ya player, na mwenyewe ana assume huyu player anaweza kuwa na miaka fulani, anamtoa.
Now, with just 5 days remaining until the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Kenya's national women's football team, the Harambee Starlets, are intensifying their high-performance training camp in Miramas, France. Head coach Beldin Odembe's 24-player squad is using the crucial final week to acclimatize to weather conditions similar to those they will be experiencing during the tournament in Morocco. Kenya will face a tough test in Group A, starting with a high-stakes opening match against tournament host Morocco on July 26th. The Starlets will then take on Senegal on July 30th before concluding their group stage campaign against Algeria on August the 3rd. This will only be the second time the Harambee Starlets have qualified for the WAFCON finals, with the stakes higher than ever, as semi-final place would automatically secure Kenya's a historic ticket to the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup in Brazil.
20. Go. 20. Your movement. Jaribu kwenda hapo na speed. Distance imeka kidogo. Less than 10 meters.
And that's all she wrote. Thank you for your valued company. On behalf of Rhoda Nyuma and I, it's a good night, sleep easy, and have a restorative night.